Hey, everybody. Listen, question for you real quick. When you think about someone who's blessed, what do they look like? You know, when I was 16 years old, I was working at a camp in southern Saskatchewan. And there's one person that stands out in my mind so clearly. His name was Rob. And I remember just thinking, that dude is like so blessed, man. Like he is living a flourishing life. And when I just think about it on the surface, the reason why I kind of looked at Rob and thought like he was the man, he was like blessed, was mostly because of the cars that he had. Like the dude was counseling at camp for the summer, but he drove the coolest cars. He had a Trans Am. Now, for some of you, you don't think about the Trans Am as being very cool, but in the mid 80s, oh, Trans Am was everything. So awesome. And he had the Trans Am T roof on it. It was like this beautiful gold. It was so cool. I remember when he would pull in, I was like, if only I could be like Rob. But he didn't just have like one awesome car. He had two awesome cars. I remember when he showed up with his Thunderbird turbo coupe, and I was like, that car is amazing. And I just remember thinking, like all of us, we were like 13 years old, and we were like, if we could only be like Rob, our lives would be fantastic. And then I remember when I turned 16 and we were working camp together, I'll never forget the weekend when he actually gave me a chance. He gave me the keys to his Thunderbird turbo coupe, and he let me take it home for the weekend. And I'm like, I'm tasting what it feels like to be blessed. Are you kidding me? It's so awesome. Hey, listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to like turn into your groups, and I want you to just answer this question. What does being blessed look like for you? Go ahead and take a few minutes to talk about that. Hey, often in our culture, we say being blessed is being happy, being able to have or do whatever we want. And most times it includes like popularity, influence, money, stuff. Now, there's a few problems with defining blessed this way. Number one, many of these things, riches, influence, positions, etc., are really hard to come by. Like, not everyone gets all this stuff. Now, in culture, it seems to be more of the norm, like in our culture. But if you compare it to the rest of the world, man, it is really hard to come by. The second problem is that for many people who actually get this stuff, what they find is that it doesn't necessarily satisfy, at least not in the way they thought it would. Relationships of the rich still fall apart, thinking about movie stars, etc. They still struggle with mental health, and things are not always as great as they seem. The third problem that often happens is that for those who do attain wealth, position, power, there can be a constant fear of like, what if I lose it? Like, what if I don't make the team? Or what if I don't stay on the team? What if someone takes my position? While there's nothing wrong with money, positions, and influence, it certainly does not guarantee like a flourishing life. So when Jesus talked about the type of people who flourish or who are blessed, he spoke about something completely different, something the opposite of control, power, influence, wealth. He spoke of a completely different kind of people. Listen to what he says again in Matthew 5, 3-12. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you, falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Did you hear what Jesus said? Like, honestly, no one says stuff like this. Jesus says that people who know they have great needs, they're poor or poor in spirit, they know they don't measure up emotionally or spiritually or physically. He says they're blessed. He says people who mourn, like who are sad, who carry the concerns of others, who understand what it is to experience deep loss. He says they're blessed. He says the meek, those who are humble, who see others as more important than themselves, they're blessed. Those who know they aren't good enough, so they hunger and thirst after getting it right, after being right. He says these are the people who are blessed. And then he goes on to say that people who like radically, sacrificially meet the needs of others, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, the persecuted ones, he says these type of people are also like blessed. They're flourishing. Essentially, Jesus is saying that we should all be jealous of these types of people. Why would he say that? How could he say that? Okay, here's what I think Jesus is saying. People who know they have needs they can't meet on their own and see others with needs that they can't meet on their own, these people are uniquely positioned to experience Jesus meeting their needs and the needs of others through them in like life-changing ways, in such powerful ways that they know they are blessed. Let me give you an example. When Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, he's talking about people who know they're not good enough to earn God's favor and blessing. They know they're sinners. They know they've screwed up, that they don't do all the right things, and they don't do the right things with the right motives all the time. These people who get that, they know they need Jesus to make them right. And because they know that, and they surrender to Jesus, they actually experience him changing them, and the experience is transforming. They flourish in that. They're blessed. When Jesus says, blessed are those who mourn, what he's saying is that these types of people are aware of injustice. And the injustice hurts their heart in such a way that they mourn over their own sin and injustice and how the sin and injustice of others hurt others. They're not distant. They empathize. They care. They do something about it. And because they're invested in this journey, they actually experience Jesus working in and through them to help others. And they're blessed. Their life is hard, but it has real meaning. They're blessed. When Jesus says that blessed are those who are persecuted, and seriously, no one wants to be persecuted. Like, that's crazy. But people who are persecuted for righteousness, for doing what is right and good for others, these people are uniquely positioned to experience God at work through them, changing lives. And they're blessed, even in the middle of the persecution. They're blessed because they experience the freedom of like forgiving people who are against them. They're blessed because they experience the radical love for even their enemies by God's strength, changing the people around them. They are uniquely positioned to experience God at work in and through them because they know they cannot do this on their own. They need God. And when he shows up, they're blessed. Their life matters. They experience a deeper satisfaction and a peace and a joy, even in the midst of the tears. They're blessed. Hey, when it comes to Jesus' kingdom, the type of people who are considered blessed, the type of people who flourish, are completely different than what we expect in our culture, in our school, in our communities. And here's the beautiful thing. Each of us is invited in to be these types of people, to experience what it means to flourish and to be blessed. When we truly acknowledge our need for Jesus, we're poor in spirit. We mourn over injustice. We humble ourselves and become meek towards others. We hunger and thirst for righteousness because we know we are not righteous on our own. When we acknowledge our need and surrender to Jesus, we become so blessed. And when we see the needs of others and sacrificially move to meet those needs, we offer mercy. We fight to be pure in how we treat others. We make peace with others instead of war. We suffer hardship for doing right towards others. When we see the needs of others and ask Jesus to help us meet those needs on his strength, we are blessed. We flourish. Even in the midst of tears, we're satisfied. Friends, acknowledging our needs and sacrificially meeting the needs of others, you guys, that's the flourishing life. And it's the life that Jesus invites all of us into. You know, I remember the first time Cole dropped in on a half pipe with his skateboard all by himself. He was probably, somewhere between 3 and 5. And it was a big celebration for us. The day started with me like holding his hand while he worked on coming down the pipe. I'd hold his hand, he'd hold mine, he'd drop in. The first few times we held on to each other, but then I started changing, how we held on to each other. After a bit, I started kind of loosening my support. I'd hold on to him with like 4 fingers, and then we'd hold on with 3 and then 2. And then I remember when we finally got to the pinky fingers. And then there was that moment when, for the first time, I just let him go all by himself and he dropped in completely alone. It was a serious celebration. You know, in life, there's a type of journey where the more independent we become, the more blessed we feel, the more we celebrate. But when it comes to following Jesus, it's actually just the opposite. The more we understand our need for Jesus, and the need is real, whether we're aware of it or not, the more we understand our need for Jesus, and the more we ask Jesus to help us meet the needs of others, that's when we are truly blessed. That's when we truly flourish regardless of our circumstances, regardless of our position, power, or influence. And that is who Jesus is calling you to be. It's actually who he is calling us to be. He wants us to be blessed.